Throughout human history, a handful of events have struck with such force, emotionally, politically, scientifically, or socially, that they altered everything that followed. These were moments that didn't just fill the pages of newspapers, they carved themselves into the memory of entire civilizations. Some came with thunderous explosions, others with silent signatures on paper, and some arrived quietly, noticed only years later when humanity realized their magnitude. But all of them shook the world. Centuries ago, when the world was still divided by empires and kingdoms, one such moment took place in the bustling city of Constantinople. It was the heart of the Byzantine Empire, a place where cultures merged, where trade routes crossed like threads in a tapestry, and where ancient wisdom lived among golden domes. For 1,000 years, this city had stood strong. But on a warm morning in May 1453, cannons thundered outside its walls. The Ottoman Empire, led by a young and brilliant Sultan Mehmed II, launched an attack that would collapse not just a city, but an entire age. When Constantinople fell, the medieval world fell with it. Scholars fled west, carrying ancient Greek and Roman manuscripts, gems of knowledge forgotten for centuries. Their arrival in Europe sparked something extraordinary: the Renaissance. Art, science, exploration, and philosophy were reborn. One city's collapse shook the world into a new era. More than 2 centuries later, when the age of empires had reached its height, another event lit the torch of revolution. In 1776, in a small hall in Philadelphia, a group of determined men signed a document that carried unimaginable courage. The Declaration of Independence was not simply ink on parchment. It was the beginning of a new idea, a new way of thinking. It declared that power came from the people, not kings. That equality, liberty, and justice were rights given by nature. This act shook the foundations of monarchies across the globe. Revolutions followed, voices rose, and oppressed societies began demanding the same rights. The world was shifting from rule by bloodlines to rule by the people. A single declaration echoed across centuries. But not all moments that shook the world carried hope. Some brought devastation on a scale unimaginable. On a quiet day in April 1912, the Titanic, pride of modern engineering, sailed across the Atlantic. The ship was a symbol of human confidence, of the belief that technology had triumphed over nature. But on a freezing night, that belief shattered when the ship struck an iceberg. The unsinkable sank. More than 1,000 lives were lost, and the world realized that human ambition had limits. It sparked global changes in maritime safety, communication technology, and emergency protocols. But more deeply, it humbled humanity, reminding it that arrogance carries a heavy price. Only 2 years after the Titanic tragedy, an event occurred that didn't just shake the world, it tore it apart. In 1914, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand seemed, at first, like a regional crisis. But within weeks, alliances activated like a chain reaction. Europe descended into the First World War, a conflict so brutal, so vast, that the 20th century was reshaped in its aftermath. Empires crumbled, new nations were born. Political ideologies rose like storms on the horizon. The borders of the world map were redrawn. Over 20 million lives were lost, and humanity learned that the power to destroy was now far greater than ever before. But the world had not yet seen its darkest hour. In September 1939, the Second Global War began, an even deadlier, more devastating conflict. Entire continents were pulled into the fire. Cities were leveled, millions were displaced, and in 1945, humanity witnessed the most shocking moment of all when 2 atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The explosions released a force beyond comprehension. In seconds, the world realized that it had entered the nuclear age, a time when human beings held the power to annihilate themselves. Fear, caution, diplomacy, and international cooperation changed permanently. The Cold War began, a silent but deadly standoff between nations holding destruction at their fingertips. Not all world-shaking moments are forged by war. Some are born in laboratories, in the minds of people with visions far beyond their time. In 1928, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin by accident when he noticed mold-killing bacteria in a petri dish. This single moment, subtle and unplanned, changed the fate of humanity. Diseases that once wiped out cities could now be cured with a simple injection. Life expectancy rose. Medical science leapt forward. Millions of lives were saved, not through weapon, treaty, or revolution, but through a humble dish of mold. Sometimes the quietest discoveries shake the world the most. Fast forward to 1969, when the world looked up, literally. On a night in July, millions sat before their televisions, breathless, as a small spacecraft descended toward the moon's surface. When Neil Armstrong stepped out and uttered the words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," time seemed to stand still. Humanity, for the first time, had left its home. The moon landing wasn't just a scientific triumph. It was a message that nothing, not oceans, not gravity, not distance, could stop human curiosity. It inspired generations of scientists, engineers, and dreamers. It reshaped global politics, education, and technology. It made children believe that the impossible was possible. The late 20th century saw another shift, not in physical space, but in the digital world. In 1989, Tim Berners-Lee proposed the World Wide Web, a system that would allow people to access and share information instantly. No one realized at that moment that the world had just changed forever. The internet connected nations, families, cultures, and ideas at lightning speed. It redefined business, communication, entertainment, and education. It made the world smaller, faster, and more interconnected than ever before. From social media movements to global scientific collaboration, the web became the heartbeat of the 21st century. But even in this new century, the world continued to shake. On September 11, 2001, the world witnessed one of the most shocking attacks in history when terrorists hijacked airplanes and brought down the Twin Towers in New York. The images burned into the memory of billions. The attack reshaped global politics, sparked worldwide security reforms, and transformed international relations. It began wars, shifted policies, and created a new era of vigilance. The world would never be the same. More recently, in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic became a moment no one could escape. A virus so small, invisible to the naked eye, stopped the entire world. Cities fell silent, travel ceased, hospitals overflowed, millions lost their lives. Yet, at the same time, humanity witnessed acts of extraordinary courage and unity. Scientists worked across borders to create vaccines in record time. Communities supported each other. The world learned that global challenges require global cooperation. It reminded us of our shared vulnerability and our shared strength. These moments, whether born from brilliance or tragedy, share one truth: they changed the direction of human history. They were events that forced people, nations, and generations to rethink who they were and what they could become. Some moments shook the world by breaking it, others shook it by lifting it higher. But all of them left a mark, reshaping the path of humanity. And history is far from finished. Even now, somewhere in a laboratory, on a battlefield, in a parliament hall, or in the mind of a young dreamer, the next moment that will shake the world is already forming, quietly, slowly, waiting for its time to change everything once again.